Hi, today we are going to speak on cake flour. What flour is good for making cake? Now, if I look into a cake universe, I call it cake universe. You've got a sponge cake, then you've got a cupcake, brownie, red velvet, pound cake, and you have got dense sliced cake. This is bar cake as well. Now, cakes which are prepared by plant bakeries produced by hub and spoke model bakeries. The meaning of hub and spoke model is that there is a central kitchen and then they supply to the franchises two deliveries early in the morning and later in the evening. And then you have got artisan bakeries. Artisan bakeries meaning that there is a counter in the front and bakery in the oven. Now these are the class of cake, whether we talk of egg based or we talk of egg free, these are the cakes sold across India. Now, to make a good quality cake, what kind of a flour shall be used? And what is the difference between a bread flour and a cake flour? In a bread flour, the quality of protein, as we discussed in our last video, the quality of the protein and the quantity of the protein is important. Or more important is the quality of the protein. That means the gluten formation. That means the gluten means when flour comes in touches with water, the protein activates to form gluten. And it is the gluten strength which is required in bread. But in contrast, when we are working with cake, the quality of the gluten is not required so much. That means the gluten percentage has to be low. So if I write a specs of cake flour, I would rather take dry gluten as around 9 to 10%, sedimentation value 21 to 23 ml, falling number 250 plus, moisture content 10 to 13%, and a very important factor in a cake flour is viscosity of the cake flour. So that means, how do you check the viscosity of a cake flour? You take 10% of flour plus 90% water and check the viscosity through a Ford cup meter. Why this is necessary? Because so many components makes a cake, and the viscosity of the batter plays a very important role in aeration of the cake. Another important factor is the pH of the cake, pH of the flour. 6.1 to 6.3 would be the recommended. Now, How can we get a good cake flour? Now in India, all the flour millers grind the wheat, grind two qualities of wheat. One is a hard wheat and there is soft wheat. Our interest in cakes and cookies is this soft wheat. So that means we have to select a milled soft wheat of the characteristics or of the specs that I just spoke of. Having said that, not every miller does this soft wheat. That means you have to be very focused and ask the miller in your respective geographical area whether I am getting a soft wheat flour. So that is priority number one. But especially when you are making sponge cakes through which you are going to make pastry, why do you think this top end companies have got very good sponge cakes? And why sponge cake is so important? Why customers like it? The basic thing about a sponge cake which is makes pastries for you is great water holding capacity. That means the pastry chef pours sugar syrup over the sponge before he puts his whipped cream, a layer of whipped cream. This flour is the only player which determines the water holding capacity. That means the softness of the cake. How does he get it? So that means for making cake, all the cakes of the universe that I spoke about, there are three options. So option number one is called chlorinated flour. Option number two is finely milled flour with low moisture content. And the third is a milled soft wheat flour. So that means there are three tools at your disposal. Number one is chlorinated flour. Number two is a finely milled flour with low moisture content. And you have a milled soft wheat flour. I draw your attention to this low moisture content flour. We discussed that the flour moisture content for a cake is between 10 to 13%. Now when I say low moisture content, that means I have to get it down to around 9%. This will improve my shelf life of the cake. Now what is finely milled? That means the miller should have a special equipment to reduce the particle size of the flour. And what is the particle size of the flour? 90 microns. And how can he do it? This is a special equipment required which is called a hammer mill, and it is rotating at almost around 10,000 RPM. So this is one area to look into. There are several countries which do not allow, or regulatory issues do not allow chlorinated flour to be used. We shall discuss this subject, but they allow this. So the closest option which comes is a finely milled flour of 90 microns and 9% moisture content. But you cannot get a same result what chlorinated flour does. We talk now on chlorination of flour. Chlorination of flour is a special attachment where the flour is conveyed through a conveyor, and then you are having chlorine gas purged in. What happens when chlorine gas is bursted? pH of the flour comes down to 4.7 to 4.9. Remember, our cake flour, as I discussed, was 6.1 to 6.3. So you have got the pH which has come down. What this indicates? This indicates that your cake shelf life will be higher. And since chlorine is a bleaching agent, a chlorinated flour will be white in color. It weakens the gluten because in a cake or a cookie system, you do not require a very well developed gluten. Why? Because the fat and the sugar actually is enveloping or surrounding the flour water mixture, and it is not allowing the protein or the gluten to develop. We do not require a high gluten development. Hence, this weakens the gluten. The third is it contributes to the volume of the cake. It gives you a very fine net structure. And we discussed about water holding. How does it do it? It actually alters the amino acid profile of the flour, and hence there is no replacement to chlorinated flour. But unfortunately, a chlorinated flour, if a miller, it's a very costly equipment. Every miller cannot set it. But the only problem is this flour cannot be used in other applications. You have to only use it in cake, prominently into cake, and to a little extent in cookies, but never into bread or laminated puff paste. In my next lecture, I shall focus myself on cookie production. Thank you so much.